Doesn't
Oh, so creepy.
it? Yeah, it doesn't say that at the beginning, right?
No, it does not. But it is
Okay.
very, very creepy.
It is
It is
very
creepy.
creepy. Well, anyways, welcome everyone to our 10th episode of Financial Decapitation. It's been about a week, or actually, it's been exactly a week since our last recording, and markets haven't been markets haven't been normal as always, as we're still in our lockdown, and the world's economy is still at a standstill in terms of productivity and output. But we're still chilling at home. We're taking it easy, or at least some of
No,
us are.
no wine and cheese today, just because we're all split apart. Unless,
Yeah.
unless we make a day drinking at home a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd prefer not to make that a thing.
Yeah, that don't want to build those sorts of bad habits. Like,
Yeah, especially now more than ever because we're probably more susceptible to that now than we were, a month and a half ago.
oh yeah,
Yeah, everyone's at home with their families. Everyone's arguing. Divorce lawyers are going to be busy in a couple of months. It's a great time.
Yeah, I've seen
yeah,
those jokes. Too bad you can't really can't invest in that. There's no business out there that's solely built for like divorce.
Invest in a divorce law office. Just like
yes.
private practice. Find someone who wants a partner.
One needs an investor.
They're a large-scale law firm that specializes in divorce.
I mean, they'll take your money, but like, will they give anything back?
Mm,
They'll give you a divorce.
That's the risk. Yeah.
yeah. So today marks our 10th episode of the Financial Decapitation podcast. Holy crap. 10 episodes already. We're gonna try and be consistent and do an episode a week. And just build that habit within the podcast itself. And if anyone wants to kick off, if anyone has any like news that want to kick off the
I have something I can kick off with.
So-
So 10 episodes to the viewers who are listening. Thank you. And I'd like to start off on a strong note with Elon. Will you please shut
Oh
the
my
fuck
God.
up?
Oh my God. I'm not surprised that we would start off with this, but at the same time, I'm so burnt out with the fact that this dude's just losing his mind. I feel like slowly since day one we started talking about him. This fool, this madman, dude.
He's been a very strong topic of ours because he's a very interesting character.
Yeah, you could
Dude,
definitely say that.
Is he losing his mind?
I think so. I mean, his most recent tweets were so focused on him discarding all of his property pretty much. He said almost everything. He's just going to get rid of it and he won't own a home. And he owns 7 houses that are each worth upwards to $3 to $4 million and of course higher.
I think the combined total of the 7 houses is like 100 mil.
Well, okay, well there you have it. So I'm way
Yeah.
underballing that. It's way
Oh,
higher.
for sure, you're way underballing it.
Well, like either he's because he is known to troll, either that's also a troll, or he's really kind of like losing it or having some sort of issue.
Doesn't he
Either
have a
way,
kid due in a couple of
that's a
days? What is he doing with his life, man?
I don't know. I mean, either way, that's a problem because either he's a CEO who's acting like a child, or or he's having like a serious like
Midlife crisis?
Yeah, some sort of a midlife crisis.
So,
Well,
to
I
anyone
mean-
who doesn't know what we're talking about, some context is he posted on Twitter saying, I think the Tesla stock is worth too much. And then like 2 hours later, he's like, by the way, I'm selling all material possessions. I no longer need any of them, including all of my houses. I no longer need to own any homes. I'm gonna focus on Earth and Mars, baby. And my fucking God. What a madman. What a mad lad.
and like in a couple days before this too, he was then saying comments that this lockdown is like through a fascist regime, was pretty much calling the government fascist for locking us down.
And he's
And I'm
Yeah.
sitting here like, my dude, like you're an engineer. You're supposed to be this really smart guy, and I'm like trying to give you all the credit in the world for being smart. But now it's just kind of coming to a point where I'm like, you got
questioning it.
some issues, dude, like big issues.
Yeah, it's for
All of his
someone.
comments are of questionable value.
Yeah, when
And yeah,
considering he's someone who's like involved in the sciences, it's really like contradictory for him to turn around and disregard the scientific like findings and expertise of like medical professionals.
And I mean,
um,
it's just common sense. Like, if you're sick and you go outside and you're in a crowd of people, the chances that you're going to get at least one more person sick is pretty high. I mean, you don't even need to be a doctor or even know more than like fifth grade or sixth grade math of basic probability, knowing your fractions, that is a very possible outcome. I just, it's really unfathomable that someone doesn't understand that, you know?
yeah,
someone in his position with his viewership and has that much outreach is able to say something so uh, how do I say it? To brandish such words in such a way is unresponsible, I think. Dude, hold on. So first of all, is it legal to say I don't think this stock is worth that much? Especially
So
considering that the SEC probed him and then sued him and then basically made every time he talks about the stock, he has to get board approval. Now he's saying, I don't think the
he,
stock is worth so much, and it
he
tanks
he's
10%.
gonna get audited again, and he's probably going to get accused again and investigated again. I mean,
Because
he's
why do I get the
influential.
feeling something like that is insider trading?
Well, it's not by definition insider trading because he didn't really reveal. He didn't really back anything saying like, "Oh, I know that something's going on here and it's not pri." He merely just said an opinion because it's not factually based. An opinion
What would
that
be
the stock
insider
is
trading is like
well,
saying, "Hey, you should buy some stock. You should like buy some stock the day after tomorrow," and then going out and publicly saying something like that. The stock obviously tanks, and then he buys
yeah,
back into it, or his friends buy back into it, or something. Or
wouldn't
he
it?
uses that power and the knowledge of about to use it to do something. So if they audit him and they see that someone around him bought more stock at the time, like someone
then
on the
that is
board or
yeah,
someone in
then
his family or friends,
yeah, then it's insider trading
Wouldn't it be
in that
considered
case.
just like stock manipulation, just in general? Like,
In the first
or
that
accusation,
is.
if they don't investigate, yeah, it would be manipulation.
yeah,
That's stock manipulation for sure. You can't go out to the public and say, "Ah, I think we're overvalued."
yeah.
You
As the
can't do that.
CEO and like owner of the company, as the head of Tesla, go and
I
say,
think
"Ah, yeah, I think my it's a bubble. Like the price is too damn high."
I
It's like
think if
what?
they took away his Twitter account, the world would be a better place.
You could say that about so many people nowadays. Just
Yeah.
I think if they
countless
took away
leaders. Oh
a
yeah.
lot of I think if they took away Twitter, the world would be a better place.
I'm pretty sure that has some merit to just
Yeah.
completely get rid of it.
It's actually interesting. There's a lot of studies about how social media is like affecting people these days. It's kind of concerning, like in terms of like affects some people's like mental health and dealing with anxiety. It's yeah.
I mean,
That you're
social
not
media.
wrong in like reducing social media consumption.
Yeah, I mean, for some people, social media has kind of it either gives them confirmation bias on certain things, or just the whole concept that you're in this competition with your peers. Everyone's trying to post the next best thing and whose life is better off than the other person's. It's getting to the point where you're just comparing yourself to so many people, and you don't realize that you're comparing apples to tires. It just like it's not even in the same fruit category now. You're trying to compare two incredibly impossible things to compare. And it's just it's kind of unfortunate, but there's merits to social media, and then there's demerits to social media, and
Oh yeah.
it's hard to say like, you know, what's the best solution. But social media does have its problems, big time.
Yeah, I think like anything, it really comes down to just moderation, just how much of it you consume. Um, just so it's like saying eating donuts and nothing but donuts to like that wrecks you in your diet. Like you can't just eat donuts all the time; you'll fucking die. It's
Yeah,
all sugar. That's the same thing with social media. You can't always freaking eat sugar all the time. You need to like step away or like cut down on the amount you consume.
yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, that just ties it all into that really easy concept of consumer choice, and to what degree do you let consumers choose. And I mean, as a free trade supporter like myself, I believe consumers are free to really make any decision they have, with one caveat: we have to make sure they're informed to the best of the ability we can inform them.
You have
Yeah.
to take the
That's it.
North Korean approach.
Oh,
No.
that's a magical approach, not one many people come back from.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, something I don't think we discussed the last time because I think our news was just coming out. Um, the, the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong Un, is not doing well. Um,
He's back.
he's back. Is he back?
Yeah.
no, 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 no. That
No,
hasn't
he.
been proved.
Well,
So
are you talking about today's news with the fertilization plant that he just opened?
that okay? Did you read that article?
Yeah, I did. They don't have, the press wasn't present, and they were just releasing. What's
That
it?
was state-run North Korean
Yeah,
news
yeah,
reported that he's back.
right.
That's literally just them dangling a dead body in front of 1,000 people saying, "Yeah, he's back." We don't
Yeah,
have proof that he's back.
I
No
mean,
one knows.
but that's still, I mean, it's conjecture either way for both sides. People who claim that he's dead or vegetated. I mean, all we know is that the American had some sort of intelligence there. But I mean, come on. We know with all major countries, they don't release full details in. So I mean, sure, he might be in a vegetative state, or all of our intelligences know something else that we don't know, and they're not releasing the full story to the public. Either way,
That's
odds
what's
are he's
happening.
probably not dead.
You are
Odds are he's
not getting
probably
the
not
full
dead.
story.
Although it's
I
probably
think
he was probably not at the beach drinking mai tais like like the North Korean media said.
No, no, he's
No.
not. Yeah.
I don't think this is the right platform to be spreading I think this and I think that with like random thoughts, but I'm pretty sure he was dead or killed or something. And like don't take my word for it because I don't know, the news is the news and what actually happened is what actually happened and they're realistically probably totally different things. And I don't think we're getting the full picture here, so
Yeah. Only time will tell.
yeah, I mean,
Now,
eventually you'll find out that someone will spread the information of like, yeah, like he died, and then they try to conceal his death and just keep the country from falling out of chaos or falling into chaos by saying, yeah, look, here he is doing some plant life thing. I don't know.
Well, I mean, they were discussing in several of the articles I was reading that this isn't the first time North Korean leaders have disappeared mysteriously for a period of time and then reappeared. Kim Il Sung reportedly went missing for a month and then reappeared a month later. Kim Jong Un's father. Oh man, what was his name? Kim Jong Il. There we go. Uh, he went missing for 3 weeks and later was discovered to have ankle surgery. And when he came back from with a cane. So I
hmm.
mean, they're just saying that yeah, he's back in business, but I mean, there's no way he's dead. Kim Il Sung apparently got shot like in the face
Oh my god.
Someone tried
and
to
came
wait,
back a
what?
month later.
I mean,
Yeah,
what's not to say that they're just like bringing in actors to pose as the leader who's entirely just a puppet of their regime or something like that.
yeah. I mean, that's hugely possible. I mean, at the end of the
Usually.
day, it's hugely possible, but at the end of the day, I mean, between Kim Jong Un and his sister, I mean, they're both equally pretty shitty. So I mean, if Kim Jong Un did die and he got replaced by his sister, I mean, yeah, you're not really upgrading or downgrading. That's pretty much just Kim Jong Un woman version.
Damn.
Yeah, it's so it's like if he died, I mean, would whatever.
The
Just
apple doesn't
replace him.
fall too far from the tree.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
it's
another
weird.
piece of news, and this is a little bit more recent, is apparently Berkshire Hathaway released its first quarter earnings, and they reported a net loss of about $50 billion.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's a big number.
um, yeah, it's a very big number.
What was the percent change?
Percent change.
50 billion's a lot, but I'm curious to see what percent of the
Let
equity
me
it
let
was.
me try to find the total percent change because it's given me the like profit percentages. Quarterly operating profit rose 6%, which is 5.8 billion. Let's
Okay.
see.
Oh.
Work-
That's profits, right?
Yeah, that's profits.
Yeah, because I mean, my big thing with a lot of the reporting, especially when it comes to third-party news and not straight from the company, is and again, I cannot stress enough. This is why I am so bent on hearing percentages over values, is because you hear $50 billion and you're initially thinking, "Holy shit! Wow, Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, 50 bill. Wow, I need to get out of the stock market now." But what if you discover they have like a trillion? Let's just say if I'm pretending here, but if they had $1 trillion, 50 billion is not a sizable amount of 1 trillion that you would freak out about, which is why I like percentages. You show the growth. You can give me you don't even need to give me the picture. You tell me 10%, cool. 10% can either be growth, it can be a change, great. But if you give me like $10, I have no idea what you're talking about. $10 for a can of soda or $10 for a car. Like, it's hard to say. But did you get it?
No, it was not in that article. I'm looking at another article right now to try to see if there's percentages I can pull.
But actually, your topic relates back to the whole Elon Musk thing, where there's articles going around saying, yeah, a single tweet wiped out $14 billion in market value. You're like, holy shit! And then you look at the numbers, and it's 9.5%, and then they move that much in a day on any given day. In like the last couple of months, it's been like that daily. So how much of a change is there
Exactly.
really?
Yep, exactly. And that's the biggest part is I think you and I might be talking about the same article. But then again, a lot did come out saying similar stuff. But that's what ticks me off is, as an economist and as someone who studies statistics, the percentage shows change. If you just give me the value, congratulations to you, you can count. But I don't care about you counting. I want to see the change. And that's the thing. Yeah, they change 9% like daily or weekly. Like, why do I care? Do you really credit that much to the tweet? Or is it just the general behavior of their company? That's that that's the big picture.
Uh, I don't know why it's saying. Okay, this article is really weird. It's saying investment loss track the overall slide in stock markets. The S&P 500 dropped 20%, but that's in the first quarter. But that's the S&P 500. That doesn't give me the percentage for Berkshire itself. Like, what the
Well, see,
fuck?
you can go on, for instance, like finance.yahoo, look up Berkshire Hathaway, and then see they like publish they have the reports published and that sort of stuff posted usually on there, and you can find some things. I think most of the stuff is premium, but you can get like at least the titles and certain snippets of stuff, and it'll tell you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean,
Or you
even
could
then,
just sort of compare with like using a graph. You could just look at the value.
right. And I mean, even then, we see Berkshire Hathaway report this loss. Just reading an article here from the New York Times, we're looking at this being credited to large stakes held in major airlines and financial firms. So, realistically speaking, if they have their portfolio comprised of a lot of these airlines, which are shut down, which are not doing really good right now, obviously they're going to have losses. And this is my biggest gripe with a lot of ways we or the news outlets will write these articles is they will report something and word it in a fashion where it can incite
More.
fear or unnecessary caution, and now they're not getting a big picture. Now they explain it well in these articles. The problem is we're kind of in the day and age where a lot of people are headline readers and not article readers. So someone's going to see Berkshire Hathaway lost 49.7 billion in first quarter stung by coronavirus. If no one else reads the rest of the article, they're just going to be like, oh my god, Berkshire Hathaway this and that, and done. They don't understand. Which happens a lot.
It is none of these articles giving a percentage of loss.
It's fine. Anyways, I think we digressed.
The headline thing is a huge deal because I'll see people just like go through the news feed and they'll just look at the headline and then the first two lines of text that appears underneath it and be like, oh damn, show someone else the headline and then just keep scrolling without actually reading anything.
This is exactly why I like The Onion and the Babylon Bee can get so many of their hilarious things out, and people will spread those because they don't read them.
Make The Onion popular again. That shit is amazing.
It's hilarious.
Fake news like wildfire.
Yeah. I've gotten some from people I know, and I have to like send them just a really short message like, did you read the article?
My mom has given me an Onion article before. I'm like, Mom, no, this is not what you think it is.
So Berkshire Hathaway might have lost or gone down 50 billion something. You also have to consider that they're one of the top 10 top 10 most valuable companies in the world. They're worth hundreds of billions. That could fluctuate on a monthly basis for all we know. I really need some more context on what you mean exactly, what they lost, what happened, why. And with the coronavirus going on, people are bound to lose money. Like, a lot of people are talking about, almost 20% unemployment in our country, but it's pretty obvious that the biggest companies are losing millions, if not billions of dollars, not being able to operate to, their full capacities, not being able to do everything that they've been doing normally. So
let me do some quick and dirty math. Hold on.
It's not unreasonable to hear something like that, at least
if I use market cap, like their total market cap currently, I could get a percentage, correct?
Yeah, it might not be a direct correlation of the amount of money they lost because their market capitalization or their value is a combination of everything from their assets to their debts to their profits to their everything, and some future speculation as well. So you won't get the full picture of that one specific number you're looking for, but you'll get a general idea of what happened.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
It's hard to really gauge, like, because if I earned $10 one month and then I earned $20 the next month, I doubled my profit. But if I am worth $100,000, you're not going to see that I doubled my profit by gauging my stock value.
You doubled your revenue.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, so 49.7 billion. Yeah, I'll be honest, this is a lot of attention we're putting towards news that I don't really find super important, other than if you are highly invested in airlines and financial firms. This might be a big thing. But big picture, everyone's losing money. And I get that people really want to hone in on, the lord of all stock trading, Warren Buffett, and hence Berkshire Hathaway. But at the end of the day, they're a portfolio. They do a lot of investments. It's all of us are losing money. I get we want to really focus in on them, but hell, you can focus in on my portfolio, and I've lost some money. It happens.
I'd like to actually turn the attention of our conversation to a different topic, because it's one of my favorite tech companies that I've talked a lot about, AMD. I just want to talk about the tech sector for a minute and just kind of report on some observations I found, which I kind of think are interesting. is not necessarily particular to AMD, but the genre as a whole is over the last couple of months, since a lot of people have been operating from home, you've actually seen a lot of companies like Newegg or Amazon throw up deals on computers, computer parts, microphones, speakers, whatever, monitors. And the most interesting thing is that the mobile sector seems to be rapidly expanding over the last 2 years, not just now. And AMD has finally entered a point where they're competing heavily in the mobile sector. And I don't mean mobile phones, I'm talking about laptops, possibly tablets in the future, that sort of stuff, where they're finally coming out with chips, processors that are very competitive, where you see something like high core counts with low TDPs, low power consumption, so that they can actually be used. And the biggest deal with a mobile processor that's put into a laptop is low power consumption, because essentially you're pulling power from a battery instead of pulling power from the wall, and the most you can travel with through an airline is 100 watts. So you have these batteries limited to 100-watt capacity, and you have these chips that are basically designed to take as little power as possible, but still put out as much work as possible. So you have low power, high output chips that are the heart and soul of these laptops. Now the thing that I noticed is that you have companies that have normally only come out with SoCs, which is a system on a chip. It's a processor, GPU, RAM, everything put into one. Companies like Qualcomm, who have only come out with mobile CPUs, mobile SoCs, or phones and that sort of stuff, are now starting to come out with their own designs for SoCs for laptops or SoCs for tablets. And they're going to compete with companies like Intel, AMD. You have Apple, who has their A13 Bionic chip that's coming out in the iPhones. They're starting to come out with them in their iPads too. There's news of them pushing those chips into their laptop space as well. So it's becoming a heavily diluted market. And I just can't help but think how great competition is for the consumer, that you're finally starting to see uh, these CPU prices go down with the level of performance significantly increase, where you could currently buy like a $400 or $500 laptop with an HD 1080p screen with AMD's APU, which is basically a CPU with a built-in GPU, and it's pretty cheap. You'll get the works, and it'll do light gaming and just about all the basic office work you can throw at it for like $400 or $500. You never would have gotten a laptop like that years ago. It's freaking great. So there's a lot of healthy competition going on in the market, where you're finally, for the first time, starting to see more than one company coming out with a product that should have been pushed to the market ages ago.
Huh.
And yeah, these companies are doing a great job by pushing this competition.
Yeah, I mean we're in dire times. Market will change. It'll shift.
General investment advice, I don't really know what to give with something like this. But, if you're looking for buying a laptop, honestly, now is not a bad time. Especially since you work from home, do everything from home in the current pandemic scenario, and then once you're out and about, you can take your computer with you.
Yeah.
Trying times indeed.
Yeah, big time. I mean, I mentioned it I mentioned it the other day. AMC is severing their ties with Universal Studios
Yes,
because Universal did their first, pay from home to view, what's it, home box office.
home box office.
So they're like, hey, here's the movie, you pay to view it. It's pretty much I'm paying to see it as if I'm in theaters, but it's cheaper and I can do it at home. And I think that's the sorry, what's up?
I don't want to cut you off. Sorry, I'll hold.
I'm just thinking there's a lot of changes that we would see. I mean, AMC severing ties with Universal. I mean, that's no small feat to undertake, because Universal is still a huge player in producing movies, and it's this is going to have a very long-term effect as we see the market change, because I think we were already heading in this direction, but make it happen so suddenly, and to have theaters start to sever ties with the movie producers, the long-term effect can be bad because it does change the way we look at theaters. It will change our lifestyle. Now restaurants, shopping centers, plazas that relied on these theaters, the long term effect is a lot of those people are going to have some real rough times coming ahead if other theaters adopt AMC's movement in severing ties with producers who choose to do home box office approaches. There's just a lot of different connections, but yeah, that was something I just definitely wanted to share um in these trying times, as Peter said.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that news yesterday, and it was something I had heard happen before, um, and it kind of all stems from releasing home box office movies, because obviously no one can go from the theater. You can instead rent the same movie that would be released in theaters, um, for I believe it's around. It varies depending on what company you're buying it from, but I believe it's around $20, and it's a rental you have for like 24 hours, and uh, it's much more affordable than taking a family out to go see a movie. The big one that I know they released was the new Trolls movie, which was with
Yeah.
yeah, it was actually very successful, and it had Justin Timberlake as one of the characters. Um, and it was very successful. I think what the biggest home box office release, like in terms of sales, um, and it was like a proof. It was just like proof that, hey, like this is a new distribution model for new movies. Um, and AMC not so happy about it. Um, Obviously, because it threatens their own business. Now, this is going to be a really interesting, uh, like the following events are going to be really interesting to see. My theory on how it's going to play out, it's not going to go the way AMC would like it to go. I don't believe. Um, in fact, I think AMC is going to have to really speed up the process that they began a couple years ago, which is turn movie theaters into um,
Lounges.
lounges. Yeah, but basically like upscale the movie theater experience. You're not going to be able to go in, have most of the time like a cheap matinee, and then um, just have some popcorn and that's it. It's going to be more of an occasional nice night out, better seating, expanded and better food, alcohol being served. Now, this has been done to a couple different AMC's. One of the like popular ones is the one in City Walk, and I think we're going to see that kind of accelerate, because when home box office grows in its sector, a lot of people are going to choose that instead. Because if you have a family of four, that's and you want to go see the next Pixar movie, that's like 15, $18 a ticket per ticket. That's not even counting parking and food and drink.
Your
Wait.
price range vastly changes your age of viewership and who's going. Like if
Yeah.
you price to $25 a ticket, you make it a little bit more boutique where
Hmm.
it's nicer, you have nicer seating, you have this like much fancier area, but then you're only focused on the people going out on like a date or with a friend or two rather than, a family with their kids.
I think this is going to lead to a lot of closures for AMC's theaters. Not all of them. I still think they can carve out that niche for themselves in that boutique theater experience. But they're not going to be this, affordable entertainment for the masses. I don't think.
Well, and so that's why I think long term, what we're going to see is theater prices are going to have to start going down. Um, because I mean that's just your basic cross of supply and demand. You're now having a complete you're having a big shift in your demand population. If this long term trend catches on, then you'll have a big shift in your demand. Key driver though with these theaters that are going to keep them relevant is still the attraction for the large screen and still the attraction for the sound systems. Because at the end of the day, unless you have an in-house theater and a giant 100-foot whatever by 100-foot whatever screen, you're not going to obtain that true theater experience. So I think theaters will still maintain relevance, but they're yeah, the consumership is going to go down. People are probably only going to use it for special occasions rather than, oh, I need to see this movie. And yikes, I mean, there's just a large chain of people who are going to get sideswiped by this. Now, how fast is
So
it going to happen? It probably is going to take some time, but I think it is on a path to eventually happening.
So then
Well,
consider this. Theaters peaked at a time when TVs at home were not really a thing, and then continued to gain popularity and keep that popularity all the way through the mid to late 2000s, so like 10 years ago. And all of this time, there's never really been a period of time where people have these giant TVs at home openly available. Now, if you look at the market for TVs for, your home entertainment systems and that sort of stuff, you can get like a good set of speakers for $100. That includes a sub and like, two or three speakers to move around the room. In addition, you can get like these 50 to 60-inch TVs for couple $100 and they're cheap and they look decent. They're high resolution. You get like a 55-inch TV in 4K right now. Amazing resolution, great size. You can put it all the way across the room and not worry about it. And it'll be, four or $500 or even cheaper if you find those budget ones. And your home audio systems and home television systems and entertainment systems in general have never been cheaper. So there's bound to be some sort of correlation between cost of entertainment at home and the amount you get versus cost of entertainment at outside and the amount they give you.
yeah, and I think another point there relating to it is we might see a shift in the long term. The movies that are offered or are really popular or watched in a theater. Um, Again, going back to the example of of four family, parents, two kids, you're less likely to go out and watch the next Frozen movie in a theater, and rather just watch it at home with your kids. While because it doesn't really matter if you have like a gigantic screen or the best sound system for the next Frozen movie, but if it's a theater experience such as what was it 1918 that came out recently within the last year, the World War One movie, or
Yeah.
That's a
Interstellar,
movie you would want to see in theater.
yeah,
I
or
saw it in theater, and that movie was phenomenal.
or Interstellar, like something like that. That's an experience that you can't easily replicate, or the quality will like the downgrade in quality will not be missed. Um, so you might go out and watch that in a theater. So you might see like what movies actually play in theaters change instead of it being
Well,
everything. It's specific movies.
quite the contrary. What if I told you that although you enjoyed that movie 1918 in theaters a lot, I sat on my couch at home in front of my 55-inch TV with my Bang& sound system that I bought for $150. That sounds amazing. And I'm an audiophile. I make a big deal about listening to good quality audio. Um, was a fantastic movie experience at home where, I paid nothing.
Um, I don't know how your experience correlates to mine because of subjective value, but um, I'm not surprised.
I'm not
um,
necessarily comparing the experience. I'm just saying, like, we're both, we both enjoyed the experience, regardless of whether it was at the theater or whether it was at home.
Yeah, I mean, so it really depends, right? I mean, my dad works in audio, and I remember having some conversations with him with between theater audio and at home audio. And I can't remember it clearly. I'm probably gonna have to ask him again. But theater audio is really wide, so it's capturing a large portfolio of sound. So I think the way he explained it to me was that the theater audio is really good if you're looking for movies that capture a large array of sound compared to if you're listening to like a surround sound system at home. I'm gonna have to ask him about this again, but he has a lot of insight on this, and there's kind of a reason we go to theaters for certain movies.
Well,
And
so with theater audio, their sound systems cover a wide range of frequencies, so you have full spectrum sound. In addition, they have very tuned audio because you can do a million different equalizer settings to tune your audio for specific things. Like for instance, if you're listening to one music over another, you might prefer one range of frequency over another. Like if you're listening to electronic music, you might like more bass, whereas if you're listening to rock and metal and you have your bass turned all the way up, then it washes out the vocals. So theaters tune their audio to a very specific profile that you might not get at home from your sound systems. In addition, they have very good directional audio settings where, if you clearly hear the speaker talking directly in front of you, the audio will come from in front of you. If you have, a whizzing car driving by the screen, you'll hear that sound go from in front of you to behind you. And a home audio system might not be so well tuned, although directional audio and home audio systems is still very much a thing. And I think the biggest thing is you get that ground shaking bass, where if you don't have a subwoofer or some sort of system on the ground at home, you don't really get that like rumbly sensation that you would get in a theater, where you see an explosion and you feel the explosion too. You might not get that sensation at home, but it really depends, because what if I told you that I do have a sub and it gave me that ground shaking bass? Could be similar experience depending on your setup.
There's also the question of specialty screenings. How will we see a greater rise, or will we see the percentage of regular screenings compared to IMAX screenings or those Dolby Atmos screenings? If really like theaters go into this more boutique uh, uh, niche.
um, it it would really have to depend. I mean, equipment matching is very much a possibility, but it's all about an investment and a trade-off. For me, I'm not an avid movie watcher, so I don't watch a ton of movies at home. And I have really nice gaming headphones that captures all the sound that I would want in a movie that I see anyways, or video games I play. So I think that is a big trade-off that will contribute to that is, are people willing to upgrade all of their entertainment systems for the family, or is the current market built so much towards everyone's personal devices that families will be less inclined to do so and treat movie theaters as that, like, oh, I'm just going to go watch a movie at the theater because that's the only time I'll probably watch a movie in the next who knows how long. And of course it depends person to person, but I mean, I don't know about you, but my family used to do movie nights at home. Now we don't really do that so much. Now it's just we kind of all do our own thing and then we'll go to the theater to do a movie night. So I think it's just going to have to depend on, our family's going to upgrade the TV, upgrade their sound system, and all that stuff in the living room because they're going to use it often, or are they not going to do that because they just simply don't consume movies at that rate in a mass viewing for the family rather than just an individual viewing for like me or me and one other person rather than my entire family. So I think that's also something to consider too, is a transformation of the consumer market with consumer electronics, TVs, sound systems, all that stuff. Because I think that'll,
Another,
that'll play a big role.
you know what? I have an interesting statistic for you that correlates to the transformation of the consumer market, which is
Sure.
that there is a strong correlation between the cost of not viewership, but the cost of viewing something and piracy.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it seems obvious, and that's because it is naturally when there's a period of time where, for instance, cable TV has really expensive packages and people are getting sick of it, and there's a million different, or there's like only 3 or 4 different companies that monopolize the entire market where they work together to keep prices extremely high, where they also pass on their entire cost to you, or movie theaters where at a time when $10 for a ticket was a lot because $15 for a ticket right now isn't as much now as $10 for a ticket was 15 years ago, where a $10 movie ticket seemed like a lot. Piracy for movies, for TV, for everything was extremely high. And then for a period of time where you saw a lot of people move over to streaming, only the streaming service Netflix, because they're on the only one for a while. Piracy sort of went down because it was $5 a month, $7 a month, whatever, to view all this different content. Piracy was at a low, and now that you see all these streaming services pop up again, everyone's raising their prices. Cost of movies are going up again. Everything is changing. People want to charge you to watch like one episode of a TV show once, $3. You're like, fuck that. I'm just gonna pirate everything, and piracy is currently at an all-time high again.
Yeah,
It makes sense.
it's really interesting. I've heard that. I've heard about both cost, but another factor that I've heard is correlated to piracy is availability. Especially in like entertainment, there's actually like certain movies or shows or channels which are region locked. Certain countries or regions don't get access to certain shows, and because of that, there's no legal way to actually access that piece of content. They'll turn pirate.
No, region lock is not necessarily enforced by law because it's region from country to country, and using a VPN is not illegal. You can legally use a VPN to bypass a region lock.
Yeah, no, I get that, but to Sarkis's credit, not everyone might set up a VPN, and some people might turn to piracy immediately. So I
Use
mean,
it
I'm sure.
by if you're talking about an easy method, that's one thing, but a legal method, VPN to bypass region lock is legal. So I mean, I think you're just looking at different wording, but yeah, I get what you mean.
Well, I think we're looking at Universal though. So I mean, assuming this is like maybe an impoverished country that doesn't have mass education or understanding of how to use a VPN, their only option might be piracy. But I think,
Yeah.
albeit wording out or wording in, there probably is a correlation with that type of measure. Makes sense. I mean, if something is
Uh,
region locked, yeah, you know.
and then that
Honestly, I
also
think
adds
that
extra cost. Sorry to cut you off, but that also adds extra cost because then you're paying for a VPN on top of whatever content you're trying to buy.
there are
But
free VPNs out there that are
There
good.
are free ones.
are there?
Yeah,
Oh, there's
there's a
plenty.
lot.
Every one I've seen is like paid, so that's why.
I mean, they might not be as fast or as efficient as the paid ones that offer more features and options, but there's still free VPNs out there.
All right.
So I mean that's what the trade-off would be. But I mean, blanket statement is if a cost is going up to a certain to a certain point where the consumer doesn't see value in the cost in what they're getting, then they'll just turn to black marketing, i.e., piracy or
Hold on.
whatever.
So, honestly, at this point in time, if you're smart enough to be able to pirate something, you're probably smart enough to run a VPN.
Right. I'm saying it doesn't matter. I'm talking about just raw correlation. Yeah, people do have the option of running a VPN, and yeah, that's not illegal. It's a legal option. I'm saying there is still probably correlation between um region locking certain things and piracy. I mean, it makes sense. You lock anything out, people are going to turn their attentions elsewhere because it's impossible to say there's absolutely zero people who are going to not use the VPN and go to piracy. I mean, people are going to.
You know what? I just remembered there's a fantastic video posted on YouTube by TechQuickie. Thank you, Linus. You're the shit. Called "Why Piracy Will Never Die." I just looked it up to find the name, and I think I remember them talking about the same correlation, where the correlation of piracy versus cost of viewing, like TV.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Going back to AMC, another kind of side effect that you pointed out, Michael, in our messages was the effect this is going to have on concessions, because concessions is really where most theaters make their profit. They don't really make a lot of money on little to no money on the ticket sales themselves. Rather, they make money on food and the drinks that they sell, and how this would affect suppliers and manufacturers of those products. So Icy is in for a real bad time.
Yeah, Icy's gonna have some problems. I mean, they have a handful of contracts with amusement parks, but I mean, it's yeah, I mean that's not gonna hardly measure up to how many contracts they have across the country and across some other countries for their deals. It just yeah, Icy's gonna have some issues along with you know, Dibs. Dibs is
Mm.
there. Haagen-Dazs is also there. They should be on the okay side, but I mean, let's face it. When you're at a theater and you want to get ice cream, you buy one of those two because those two are there. So they'll still get hit. Coke products, that one is going to be very bad for Coke, big time. Coke makes a huge amount of their revenue coming from theaters, amusement parks, and just places where you see any mass crowd of people. So Coke is gonna have a real rough time, especially because I also read a trend. A lot of restaurants are changing from Coke to Pepsi. It's because Pepsi actually lowered their marginal cost for obtaining their syrup, which I thought was really interesting. So they
Huh.
translated the cost saving technique to to the supplier end of price, which was a smart move. And so some restaurants across the country are actually changing from Coke to Pepsi.
You know what I thought was interesting was a long time ago I read that how little Coke actually earns from restaurant chains and places where they sell fountain drinks.
I
Yeah, they don't make a whole lot.
I
And
wouldn't
I'm
be
pretty
too
sure that
surprised.
that might not affect them as much as you're saying it would, because like they sell syrup, but their cost to sell the syrup is so close to their revenue from it that their profit margin is so little that it's practically just advertisement.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, I would
that's
say that would be the case, except when coronavirus happened and all the major places carrying Coke closed, Coke's price went down drastically, whereas Pepsi didn't go down hardly as much. So
well,
there's correlation.
that's the thing right there is in terms of advertisement. Yeah, Coke may not make a lot of money um, on those particular like installments,
Yeah,
um, but it keeps it in the public eye, and everyone knows what Coca-Cola is
I'm
because
pretty sure Coke is the most famous brand in the world,
it's
most
everywhere.
like widely known. Yeah.
Exactly, it's everywhere.
yeah,
So yeah, you're not wrong in when you said that it's kind of like just advertisement, really. Um, Basically, is they've lost their ads or lost a form of their ads, which you're not wrong.
yeah. I mean, they lose the ads. They're also going to lose people buying bottles at the theaters because they sell bottles as well. They're going to lose people who maybe consume Coke products outside of the theaters, and maybe they go next door to a restaurant, have a meal um, that has Coke. I mean, it's going to be
Is
a
also
long
now
term
closed.
chain, huh?
Which is also now closed.
Right, which is also
Yeah.
closed. Yeah. So I mean, it's yeah, Coke's going to run into some hard times, and yeah, it'll,
So
it'll it'll be a chain reaction.
I want to transition this chain reaction topic and hard times topic into basically another idea, which was that I don't think the economy or the market in general is going to stay green or recover so well in the coming months, and I think this is the reason. I think these big companies are going to be very slow to bring their furloughed employees back online. And I think a lot of companies are going to learn that they can outsource a lot of work because a lot of people working from home are still doing a lot. And I think that a lot of these people who may have been spending money at the start of the quarantine aren't doing so much or aren't spending so much so heavily now. And it's going to be a really slow transition. And yesterday, which was May the 1st, the dip in the stock market that we saw, I think might be a trend for the next couple of weeks at least. Because I'm going through my newsfeed and I'm reading articles about how none of these companies really want to open back up yet. Tesla just said all their furloughed employees are looking at least another 2 weeks of remaining at home. And there's a lot of other companies saying, yeah, we're not ready to open. You have companies like, for instance, the Las Vegas casinos that said, yeah, we're ready to open back up. We want to open the strip back up and, restart our economy. But it's not going to happen because, you might open your hotel, but no one's going to travel. No one's going to want to stay at your hotel. No one's going to want to spend the money that they don't have with the job that they are currently not working, with the rent that they can barely afford.
It's interesting. When you talked about employment, every Thursday the unemployment new application number comes in. I believe this week was 3.8 million, with totaling the last 6 weeks being 30 million unemployed.
30. I thought we were at 20.
No, we were at like 26 last week, and then 3.8 million came in this week. So now it's a total of 30 since
Holy shit.
the pandemic started. Yeah.
That's almost, what is that, like 8% of the country?
Of
89%, something like that?
the total
That's huge.
population or the working population?
Of the working population, it's much higher.
Yeah, of the total population, I think total pop is 350 mil. No, somewhere around there.
So somewhere there, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's around like 8% ish, I believe. Anyway, we can figure out that exact math later. Yeah, it's scary. It's close to. You know what? You got me really curious.
U.S. population is 328 million, so if we're looking at 30 million, it's like 8 or 9%.
Yeah.
U.S. working population, looking this up now, is around 155 million, so that's more like 20%.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I
Um.
mean, it'll be a rough jump start, but
I
yeah, I think.
think. Sorry.
Well, that's the thing, is you're calling it a
No,
jump
go ahead.
start, which makes the impression that our economy is immediately just going to turn back on, click back on instantly in like a week or 2 weeks. And that's not the case.
It's going to be a slow roll, and I think the way people work is going to change. I think you're right when you say companies are discovering that, hey, people can work at home and get the same amount of work done at home, and we won't have to pay for offices as much. So what we might see is office spaces might shrink. So an office that was, let's say 20,000 square feet might get cut down to like 10,000. And a lot of those employees will, instead of working out of the office, will work from their home. Um, Maybe only occasionally traveling for a meeting here or there. Um, Now, another thing that I speculated might happen is, and I remember sharing this with you guys, and I read this theory and it intrigued me, was moving jobs out of high cost areas. So it's a form of outsourcing, but instead of outsourcing out of the country, you outsource to other states. For example, high cost areas like New York and California, instead of hiring an office worker in San Francisco or LA, where cost of living is really high and you have to compensate the worker more, you would instead hire someone out of Nebraska or Mississippi, and you would pay them less, and you wouldn't even have to pay to have a desk for them or office space for them. You wouldn't have to account for that. and you would just have them work remotely. So you might see the way in which we operate, how businesses operate, change in that manner. But this is just an idea.
Well, you kind of have to understand why those high cost areas are high cost to begin with. Why is Los Angeles so expensive to live in? San Francisco so expensive to live in? It's because there's a lot of work. There's a lot of people, so there's a lot of work. So there's places and stuff to do and places to go. It's kind of like it's obvious, but that's exactly the reason why. Because it's a dense population of education, of schooling, of whatever work is available. People will go wherever there is work. If you find that there is work anywhere you go, they're not going to go anywhere. So, I mean, maybe you're not wrong to some extent, and I do think that we will see some form of outsourcing. But what's to say that they won't just like outsource to India or China or something for like way cheaper work? Like you need someone to just make a PowerPoint for you. Why not just pay some guy in China a few bucks to or like $1 or 50 cents to knock out a PowerPoint presentation for you, find some sources, find a bit of information, and send it your way.
Well,
Why have
time zones. The coordinating with a larger team in general, that will be a lot more difficult if you're on the other side of the planet, especially if you have tight deliverable due dates. On top of that, language barrier is a thing.
And
So
cultural barrier.
cultural barrier. Yeah, there are definitely.
those are all just workarounds. Like you can figure out ways around it if the
Right,
cost to use
but
it is so much cheaper.
time is the cost though. I mean, there's been a lot of there's a reason why we don't outsource certain jobs. Security, time cost, which is the time premium, okay, yeah, we can do all these workarounds around it, but how much of that is worth doing for X product if I can just pay someone just a little bit more here to do it and save on all the workarounds? It's all a matter of trade-offs, which is why I
But it's
think
not just a little bit. The idea of outsourcing is that it's significantly cheaper.
No, not always, because variable cost can be I save a penny and that saves me millions. It's all based off of an incremental amount that's exponentially multiplied due to variable cost.
I guess
So
it
I mean,
depends
labor
on
is variable.
specifics, like what you're talking about. Like if you're talking about saving money on a part versus saving money on, physical labor.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's kind of my point here, is that this debate of whether or not everyone's going to do this, or some people are going to do this, or a few people are going to do this, it's all pretty conjecture at this point, because the variability between all these different market segments. I mean, to an extent, what Sarkis described is very much possible and happening. But at the same time, it's possible some people are just going to go right back to what they were doing. It's hard to tell, because we don't have enough historicals right now to give a good forecast on what could come. Only because this is
That
all
is
so new.
that is what the economy is hoping for, is that everyone just goes back to exactly what they were doing. But that's definitely not going to be the case, because after a pandemic like this, where the system doesn't change or adapt and goes exactly back to what it was before, it people are going to complain, or you're going to see some issues with, you know, like flaws in the system.
Yeah, I mean, that happened in 2008, and people were super pissed at the mortgage, housing, banking systems, all that stuff. Not much changed, and after about a year, people went right back to doing the same thing, which is why we
Oh
still
yeah,
have a growing housing bubble now. Which is why I think, just historically speaking, looking at mass recessions, scares, shocks, it's really hard to say if this one's going to be any more different just because it's a pandemic. Because we've had, 9/11 is a good example. That one wasn't even economically caused. That was just because of a disaster that happened in one city. It killed 3,000 people and it impacted the entire United States, you know. So I mean, it's hard to say if this pandemic's going to have a lasting effect in terms of a restart to the economy. And I only think that because we've seen these stimulus checks, or not checks, we've seen stimulus given out by the federal government before, in '08 Asia financial crash. periods in 9/11 for small businesses. We've seen it before. I think the only difference now is that there might be a lasting scar of fear, but that's something we'll get over in within a year. I mean, we've done it with every great recession we've been hit with. That's why I don't think the economy is going to be slumped forever. I don't think it's going to be a very slow recovery. I think it'll probably be average. And I think that because at the end of the day, people want to work. People want to get back to work. People want to get back to consuming the goods they were originally consuming. And there will be the lingering fear. But look at the people who are protesting to get outside of their houses right now. Now, albeit I think they're pretty dumb to be doing that. And I think that's pretty stupid. But there's clearly a huge push by a group of people who want to be outside. And there's definitely an even larger handful who are inside who may sympathize with those who want to go outside. So, I think it's easy to say the economy is going to have a rough start and things are going to look bleak, but I think most businesses want to get back on their feet. And as soon as the opportunity rises where it's safe and the green light is ready, businesses are going to steam ahead quick.
I wish all of our government politicians and government employees understood that because I actually, so this is an article I read this morning where someone was comparing 2008 to now, and they're comparing us to China, where they mentioned that China is trying to also stimulate their economy, and they basically are, I think it was, they offered up 4 trillion yuan, which is like $500 billion
Yeah. Wow.
to stimulate their economy by basically expanding and building in infrastructure like more road networks and airports and helping local economies with new businesses and transportation, public transport, whatever, everything.
All
And
right. That's a
I
good
think
idea.
it's a great idea because you're putting the money directly to the people. You're allowing them to work by building them more stuff to use, like roads. Whereas I think there was, I don't remember the name. I wish I remembered the name, but the American politician who said that, no, this doesn't make sense. We're just going to give the money to the people.
Yeah, I mean it's rough because I think for politicians it's hard to say what goes on in their mind because they're not economists, or most of them. I would say like 99% of them, maybe 1% in there had economic background in something or some understanding. But people have to have an incentive to respond to. We all respond to incentives. That's just in our nature as people. That's just in our nature as humans. And I mean that's life. There's an incentive. I don't want to die. My incentive, I'm not going to die. My incentive is to make money so I can do X, Y, and Z. That's my incentive. Make money to do X, Y, and Z to get X, Y, and Z. And I think if we created a system where we encouraged people when this all comes out, when businesses begin to start paying bonuses to hire people on board, because after you lay off a huge chunk of people, you need to rehire. And if those gears start churning and you want to catch up to back to square one, you're going to have to pay those incentives. And I think if the government understood that, there could be some other better ideas that we can implement to help people pull up the bootstraps and get to work like they want to. Because people want to work. I mean, you, Sarkis, you want to work. That's why you went to college. You went to college not to just get an education and sit on your ass. You got an education to work. Peter, you're getting an education because you want to work. People want to work so that they can get money and so that they can have purpose in their life. And I
I
just
agree
wish
with you.
politicians would understand that that's why people work and they respond to the incentives. Create incentives to work.
I
That's the way
fully
you
agree.
win.
And the extent of the article also mentioned how China recovered better in 2008 than we did, just because they stimulated themselves by adding more work rather than trying to stimulate themselves by stimulating themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the case is the same here, where I don't think the stimulus money you're sending out is going to do so well. And I hear talks of a second round of stimulus checks, and people are like, "Great, free money," but you know,
It's
it's
not
it's
free.
it's not free.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It that measure, although I see the merit and I see what they're trying to do, and I commend the government for wanting to help. And to be honest, them acting is much better than them not acting. At the end of the day, we were losing a lot more with them doing nothing. So, square one, yeah, they did something. I'm glad. But I think they kind of grabbed what was at the bottom of the barrel and threw it up into the sky, and that was kind of what they did. They didn't really see, what can we really do? What's the long-term effect? And I mean, at the end of the day, long-term effect, anyone, if they do another round and another round and another round, anyone who is making less than these rounds of stimulus checks are de-incentivized to work. Now they don't need to work because now they got their unemployment benefits, any other benefits they collect on top of that, and the stimulus check. So if you add those all together, my incentive to work, you've decreased my budget curve. And now I'm like, okay, cool. I don't need to work at all now. Now I can invest pure leisure
Well,
instead of work.
here's another thing though. If we do see these people be like, "Hey, I'm making more off of unemployment and stimulus checks than I'm getting at my job," won't they demand more pay at their own jobs then?
Only if the stimulus checks continue. That's the only way that curve would stay the same.
Hmm.
Because the idea is
So
that
if
the
it was like a
stimulus check is
UBI,
another form of income.
so if it was like
Yes.
a UBI and it paid out more than their current job, then they go to the job and be like, "Hey, I'm getting paid more to not do anything than to actually do stuff at your store."
Yeah,
So
people are earning more through unemployment right now than they are normally. They get like most of what they earned normally plus an extra $600 a week. So people are now making more money doing less.
And that's the problem, is that if I built a labor demand curve and we were studying leisure hours to work hours, and there is a budget curve on there that studies, okay, at what level is most optimal utility for this worker. The problem is that if that worker had a slope that was curved and it intersects with the x-axis, which measures, as the x increases, that means more leisure, and as it decreases, that means more work because your y-axis is studying income. Or earnings, I should say earnings. It's much different. Earnings. You're pretty much increasing the income curve against the utility curve. So now, let's just say they were willing to work 2 hours part time a day and they made some money. Now they're going to work zero. They're not even going to give a shit. They're like, screw it. I'm making way more now than I need to with work. They're going to quit their jobs, leave the work market, stay unemployed. That's
So
what's
you're
going to happen.
empowering the people who are flipping burgers to ask for another $2 increase in their wages.
Well, they won't even ask for the increase in wage. They're just not going to work. They're
well,
not going to work at all.
what if they
Well,
continue
no,
to
so
produce
you
even
have to get unemployment, and if they're not working, they won't get unemployment if they quit themselves.
Wait, what? What are you talking about? For the producer to employ people?
No, no. The aren't unemployment rules that you have to have been laid off or furloughed or something like that?
Yeah, you can't if you quit if you resign on your own reasoning, unless it's some sort of extreme circumstance, then you're not eligible for unemployment.
Okay, so you can't quit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, well, so that would be for so that's for the entire unemployment benefit then.
yeah, that's the entire unemployment.
Correct.
Well, at what point does that kick in for someone who quits with the intent of finding another job, doesn't find one? At some point, the unemployment benefit would have to kick in then, or else that defeats the purpose.
No, you don't get it.
So that means if I quit my job, can't find another one, I'm fucked, period.
Yeah, that's why you have to find work while you're working. Basically, you have to apply while you're working to find other work if you want to move somewhere else.
Well,
Yeah.
in addition, unemployment benefits, they want to know that you're actively looking for work. So they ask you, did you apply anywhere? Where did you apply? Can you
Yeah.
provide us with a copy of your application?
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That
So that's
does
a
not make a whole lot of sense because that would deter people from rotating. Yeah, I don't know. That's a weird one.
there's
I've
also
never heard that before.
yeah, there's also the factor of if there was like a form of UBI and people are making getting a check from the government every month on top of whatever they're making at their low-paying job, they would just keep their current low-paying job and the monthly check and just make more money in general. Because if all of a sudden you're flipping burgers and you're also getting a second income, suddenly you could spend it on a lot more stuff. Maybe start a nest egg, maybe even just spend it on luxuries or entertainment that you couldn't afford before.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I had a feeling it didn't make sense that you can't just quit and collect unemployment. It's called a good cause clause,
Mhm.
which the two words kind of make that weird to pronounce. Good cause clause. Pretty much, you need to, if you quit your job, you have to have a good cause to quit. And then if you have a good cause to quit, you can collect unemployment benefits. So I think the good cause can easily be manipulated to this scenario where anyone can quit and claim safety as a good cause for quitting. So I think knowing that this exists, knowing that they can claim unemployment benefits, now those two can stick together very nicely, showing we've pushed a curve. People can now quit safely and collect unemployment still.
In terms of the coronavirus pandemic,
Right.
yes, but outside of that, that's not really going to apply much else.
Okay, so then
Yeah.
consider this. Unemployment is only up to a certain period of time. After a certain number of weeks, number of weeks is escaping my mind, but after a certain number of weeks, you're no longer eligible to claim unemployment because the idea is that it's just money you collect for a short period of time until you get another job back. Having a job now and still having a job later versus quitting your job, getting paid now, having questionable opportunity of work later, is it worth it?
See, that's where that's incorrect because economics shows that people are willing to quit and are willing to collect a short-term income for less work because that concept would still be there regardless.
The
I mean,
question is whether or not you'll get a job again later at the same place or somewhere else, or whether they'll hire you again, because then you include your employment history and say that you quit, and they'll ask you why you quit, and you'll tell them, and they might be hesitant to bring you back on or bring you on in
oh
general.
yeah. No, I mean that's very true, but I mean that doesn't stop people from doing it, which is my point. People are going to do it. A lot of people don't think long term, and people who don't want to work typically aren't thinking, how am I going to get back to work in the next couple months? They're thinking, how can I not do work now, collect my income now, and move on? Also, bear in mind some people who are willing to take this unemployment benefit and quit right now are could be small families. You know, two family earners. Let's just say one had super high income and another had supplementary income for whatever nest egg money or rainy day funds, that type of stuff. That person's more inclined now to not work, and odds are they'll stay out of the workforce because now they can get the unemployment benefits, and then once the unemployment benefits cut and the first earner gets a promotion, gets a higher income pay, or even just maintains and they're carrying on just fine, the second person have less of an incentive to re-enter the market. The point is that not everyone's going to be in the same scenario, but because the scenario exists, that theory is going to hold true. And I mean, we've seen it in multiple scenarios before 2008, Asian financial stock crash, 9/11. I mean, these are very prime examples of where this theory comes into play. You de incentivize work, people will take the trade off. It'll happen. We've seen it happen.
Well, so going along with what you say, can I
Mhm.
mention about how garbage the SBA loans and the payroll protection program has been over the last month or two? The amount of money that was dedicated towards this program and the
Yeah.
amount of money that's gone in the right direction is abysmal
Mm.
because they've put hundreds of billions into this program, and instead you're seeing companies like the Los Angeles Lakers collecting $15 million and then giving the money back because the public outcry shit on them, saying these are for small businesses, when the government never made any sort of effort to direct these loans at small businesses. They did not exclude publicly traded companies or companies with massive employee quantities. They said pretty much to qualify, you have to have less than 500 employees. That's it. That's really it. The Lakers are worth $3.5 billion, and the only basketball team that's worth more than them is the Knicks. And even so, that's questionable. They're one of the most valuable teams in the NBA. Their market cap is huge. They have 300 employees, and they were given $15 million. What they really should have done was cap the employee size to like 50, and with a market cap of like 5 million or 10 million. Because anything over that isn't really a small business anymore.
On top of that, I believe there was another stipulation of if you're a chain, it's something like, was it like I want to have the exact number, but they have a certain number of employees per store or less. So even if you're some sort of a massive chain, I believe last week we mentioned Ruth's Chris, right? Ruth's
Yeah.
Chris Steakhouse. They got millions of dollars from the PPP, I believe it was Payment Protection
Yeah,
Program.
Yeah. Payroll.
Yeah, a payroll program. Sorry. Yeah, they also got, even though they're a they're a giant chain with millions of dollars in value. They also somehow qualified for that program and took out millions.
You
I
know,
mean,
I
the,
have
the
several friends.
PPP can apply to anyone, but the SBA specifically, though, that one should not have gone to them if they collected that. That should
Well,
not
no,
have gone to them.
the PPP loan is from the SBA. The SBA is Small Business Administration. They're the ones who run all these loans and grants and stuff. I have several friends who own small businesses. There's one that has a market. There's another one that has a retail store, and none of them got any money from the SBA because they ran out of money by giving hundreds of millions to big businesses. And now they're talking about doing a second round of funding for that program that clearly doesn't work. That's also incentivizing against working by paying people to not work. I think it's a catastrophe. It's bad.
Yeah.
So the SBA, okay, so the SBA is an administration. It's a federal administration.
Yeah.
Okay, and how do they distribute? Do they do, them?
Through banks.
Oh, okay.
So if you're a financial institution and someone basically has a business account with you and they've had a business account with you prior to February of 2019, they can submit an application to your financial institution and basically put in the amount of wages that they lost. And if you are eligible, meaning you have like less than 500 employees, and that's pretty much it, and you have less than 500 employees and you've had a business account open since before February, then you're eligible, and you essentially tell them how much money you haven't been making, and they'll give you a portion of that. And you can get as much as like 50 to $100 million because your wages that you've lost or your revenue that you've lost is 10 times that. And a large company with like 400 employees getting $100 million is a very big deal when you're trying to distribute to all these small businesses and markets and retail stores and whatnot, all these places around the country that should be getting smaller amounts, like 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, that is bad.
Yeah, they put literally no effort into aiming this payroll protection program aimed at small businesses to aim it at small businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that the federal government wants to do something good, and then their execution is botched almost all the time. This one's pretty bad, though. I mean, I don't even know how a bank would be authorized to make that loan. I don't understand how that would even be
Well, they're just
possible.
given the thing is the SBA just gave them general guidance. They said, here are the guidelines. If they meet this requirement, you give them this percentage of the amount of wages lost. So then it's up to the businesses who are applying to tell them truthfully, this is how much we lost, and this is what we need, and this is who we are. And then the banks, given the SBA's guidance, will approve them, which is why these huge businesses are getting approved, because it's not the bank's approval, it's the SBA's guidance that's approving them. So it's because of very poor guidance of the program and like very general guidelines that the wrong people are getting approved.
Yeah.
Big rip.
Yeah.
Massive rip.
It's a lot of money, dude. It's a shit ton of money. It's not even millions, it's billions, and it's like hundreds of them.
Well, and that's and I think what's upsetting most is that that's taxpayer funds going to these huge companies. And I mean, I think what upsets me most knowing that is you get companies like Amazon who paid $0 in taxes, and then you look at me who, thank God, I have enough deductibles as a student because, being a poor academic, you don't have to pay shit, thank God. But I would have had to pay somewhere around 25 to 33% of my income. So, damn. I'm glad to hear these huge businesses are sucking up my tax dollars unnecessarily.
Oh yeah. You know what is nice though is that schools are now finally releasing their applications for the CARES grant, where students can get paid some money to help support them through these economic hardships. Where if they were eligible for some form of financial aid, they can also be eligible for the CARES Act, and they'll get some money. And you can claim expenses, and you can claim like, oh well, because I had to go home and buy a whole new laptop so I could do everything online. I didn't have the money for it, so maybe you'll give me some of the money for it. So at least that kind of shows that there is some money headed in the right direction, I think. But it's a much smaller fund.
Yeah, I mean, protecting schools and students right now is a good move. I mean, especially when you want to encourage them to pursue work and go right into the job market immediately after graduating. No better way to do it than to ensure they're going to make it to the finish line. You don't want to sideswipe them.
That's if there is a finish line.
And then they're already strapped with debt from loans itself. So
Yeah.
that's a big rip.
Yeah, these are uncertain times, but again, one thing I'm 100% certain for is, there's a finish line. There's a term limit for this this situation, and if we really do our part in making sure that we're staying healthy, we're not going out and we're getting more people sick, and we're taking the right precautions and the precautions given out by our local governments, then you know what, we'll be able to at least mitigate the long-term effects. And hopefully the federal government gets it through their thick skull that they should not reopen the economy too early, because we're still in the period where it's too early to tell if we reopen and problems happen. A country already did it. The country escapes me. They already reopened in Japan. There we go. Japan reopened, and they already had a second wave of coronavirus. Second wave.
That's the fear, is if we open up too quickly, then particularly
back down.
we'll have like a second wave.
Yeah, and it's gonna happen.
Man.
It's gonna happen. I mean, what do you think happens after? Yeah, people get sick. Maybe some people are carrying it, haven't inoculated yet. We all just go back willy nilly, and then we get more people. I mean, I don't understand why that's such a difficult concept for some people to get. Like this is not like it'll just go away. It's the common cold. No, this thing can kill select people, and we don't want to kill those people.
Yeah.
Unless they're politicians, then it happens.
Finally, we'll get some new ones.
Maybe it's the federal purge, right? Like,
this is the future. Immigration.
But all jokes aside, anyone listening, take the precautions. There's a finish line, and there's only a finish line if we follow the rules and we don't get more people sick. That's how we reach the finish line, and that's how the economy gets back on its feet. Not by you being a jackass and going outside and getting more people sick. That slows this down.
I thought of something awful.
Huh.
Just politicians are hoping that coronavirus just starts ripping through people, because that's how they keep Social Security solvent for the next couple of years.
Oh my God, this was Plan B.
Oh my god.
This was Plan B. This is why
It's
they're
all
reopening it.
conspiracy.
They're like, oh my God, we're on the verge of bankrupting Social Security. I have a plan.
Oh my god.
Jeez, that's
It's like
awfully
Disney and the patent
morbid.
laws. It's the government and their social security nonsense.
Jesus Christ. Well, I mean, as idiotic as it is to reopen the economy, I'm not going to disclude that as a reason for opening. I mean, hell, that's better than some of the reasons they're trying to tell us.
Yeah. I need my hair cut. What?
Yeah, just some of the, I get the people saying like they want to go back to work and they want to just regain the opportunity to work again. I
Yeah.
get that. And you know what? Good for you for wanting to work. And I feel you. I'm sorry you still got to stay home, but I feel you. But the people who are complaining about haircuts and eating out and enjoying their vacation, like,
They can go
look,
fuck
dude, yeah, like this is not vacation mode. We're obviously in a completely different scenario.
fighting an invisible enemy we can't see and is trying to kill our grandmas. So
Yeah.
The biggest thing that actually makes sense is trying to regain some of your composure, but anything other than that is nonsense.
Yeah, and I mean, look, like, why do you want to get a haircut now? Like, why? Who do you have to impress?
yeah.
Honestly, like, what are you going out to this big wedding? Are you going out to this big part? I mean, come on. No one
Well,
needs to
there's
get their hair done.
lefty and there's righty, and they need to know
Oh
that.
God.
No.
Jesus. Oh my God. We're gonna see mirror sales increase then.
Oh my god.
Jesus Christ.
Narcissism is at an all-time high.
Wow, if there was ever a mirror company to invest in, now's the time, apparently. Now is the time. Jesus, dude.
All right, I think we should end it on that note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we discussed we're gonna open up just like a general what was it, suggestion post on our subreddit.
Or like a
Yeah.
survey or something
Yeah,
like
just
that.
to check up on you guys, see how you're doing. We're trying to garner as much feedback as possible. We're gonna start doing this consistently, week to week. And we want to make sure, you're listening, even if it's not through the whole thing, whatever. We just want to know you're there, learning your inputs. I mean, half the stuff we talk about is just from our own perspectives. Some of it's based off of theory, and some of it's just based off of random nonsense we think of in our head. We just want to know what you think. What's your input? So we just want to know you're still alive out there and what you think.
Yeah. So
So
that'll
we're
be
gonna post something. If you could like it, comment it, mention something. As long as we get any sort of feedback, we're just trying to gauge our audience here. So
yeah. So that'll be up on the Financial Decapitation Podcast subreddit at Financial Decapitation or r/slash Financial Decapitation. You can also reach us at fdinvestmentgp@gmail.com if you want to email us directly. And then, see, lastly, what else we want to mention? Oh, yes. If you see this, wherever you're listening to this, if it's on Spotify, iTunes, etc., give us a follow if you're down. And if you really like us, maybe just like recommend us to a friend or a buddy who might be interested in listening. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. Stay safe. Stay sane.
Bye. Oh God, my nuts.